People are still coming. I feel like waiting for a breath or two as people come in. Taking time to also look at each other as welcome. Okay, I'll invite the bell as an invitation for all of us to sit for a bit as we often do. Just following your breath. The breath that is with you always and sustains you until it doesn't. But for now, we can rest with the breath. And it may seem like not much at all to rest your awareness on your breath or to count your breaths, as we are often taught, but it's a profound practice to bring your whole attention to the rising and falling of your breathing. Maybe attending to your out breath for a moment as you breathe. And with each out breath, in turn, grounded deeply in your body, releasing, releasing into the fullness of everything, releasing. And alternately, of course, with each in breath, you call forth your body, your life, connecting to all of life, really, as you breathe in and take in the world, and then release it again in the out breath. There's another quality of this rhythm that I think we don't attend to very much. We enjoy the life-giving energy of a big inhalation and the relaxing release of the exhale. But there's a small gap in between. And just notice in the next few breaths that resting point at the bottom of the exhalation before the inhalation comes. It may be quite brief, of course, but there's a space and a turn, even in that brief moment of stillness and silence and solitude. And as we sit, you might notice the different qualities of attending to the in breath primarily and what that calls forward, or the out breath, which is more commonly encouraged, the release, but also the little space, the turn, the bottom of the breath before the in breath. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Things have disappeared. It's something I wish to show you, and I want to make sure I still have it. There we go. My apologies for my clumsiness here. Part of my desire to talk about or to emphasize the breath, of course, is because it's quite essential and foundational in our Zazen practice, but also the emphasis on that little space at the bottom, that turning point, is something we don't often see. And this is a season for a turn. A season of turn. It's a season of light. As many of you know, there are several things. Solstice is on Friday. So it's that turn. And I'll say more about that in just a moment. It's also kind of a joyful season. Tomorrow is Peg's birthday, for those of you who don't know. Uh, so just be aware that her birthday is tomorrow. Mine was last Tuesday. And so it's a turn for us, certainly, senior teachers. We just completed a contemplative photography retreat here at Hui'olana in Hawaii, uh, which was a lovely, lovely time with wonderful people. And I'll say more about this. We also had a guest teacher, Cassie. Well, it was a guest teacher who did a marvelous job, and I'm going to reference some of her work here in just a moment. But really, the emphasis today is on this turn, moment of turn in our breath, in the light, in our lives. I'll also remind you that this was the last inquiry of this calendar year. The next two Tuesdays are Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So we won't be meeting on those days in this way. But what we are in the midst of or on the cusp of are the solstice, Advent, Hanukkah, all of them festivals of light. And we just passed on December 8th, Rohatsu, which in the Buddhist calendar is the day celebrated as the day of the Buddha's enlightenment. Um, enlightenment. When I have taught in both Mexico and in Switzerland, and in the south of Switzerland, where we're primarily the primary language is French. And so all my Dharma talks are translated, and in Mexico, the same into Spanish. The word that is used uh, in both languages, actually, for what we say enlightenment, is illumination, illumination. I actually heard Norman Fisher mention it the other day, which I actually prefer, illumination. And enlightenment sounds like something you're going to get that's going to happen, but illumination is, I think of it differently, the way we call forward our own light and call forward the light in our life. And interestingly, I just spent a week with photographers, which photography means painting with light. Um, so I want to share just a few things that were profound for me um, about Cassie's teaching, and she can make a comment on this as well. And then I want to talk about these three turning ceremonies right now as a way to invite your own questions and our discussion today. And so even though Cassie's here, I'm going to use her words. Um, I heard her use them. I'll offer them back to her. We'll see how she receives these, and I'm going to share an image with you too, and make some comments. In the first part of a section in which she was teaching, and I'm not using every single phrase that she used, but she said we follow our path. I think of it as our spiritual path, of course, with every step and every pause we take. You know, like the breathing. And she said, I fell in love with the process. And I know she was talking about photography, but that's not all she's talking about. She's talking about spiritual practice, really. And then she went deeper. This is what began to capture me. She said, I didn't come here seeking, I came home. Photography is science and art, a continuous mirror of the relative and the absolute. Photography doesn't capture reality. It changes the duration of time. Photography doesn't capture reality. It changes the duration of time. It lets us become aware of a fraction of a second and expand it over and over every time you look at the photograph. And I'm going to pause there. And I know I'm adding a lot of words to her words, but it was, I would pause in every phrase. The celebration of the Buddha's enlightenment celebrates our own illumination, um, our way of sharing light in the world. Not just the way we cast light on the world, but how we light up the world. And our practice offers us the opportunity. Cassie's talking about, you know, the relative and the absolute, the mirror constantly. The practice offers us a continual opportunity not to be caught in the relative, you know, caught in the self-centered dream, but to fully appreciate the ever-changing moment, to each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. But we also have the opportunity in our practice to touch the absolute, but not get lost there, being just this moment, compassion's way. Um, and that wonderful phrase where she talks about photography changing the duration of time. You know, in Zazen, we step outside of time. Um, Time is not what we're following. We step outside of time. And like Cassie said about a fraction of a second, which is captured on a sensor or on film, which can be observed throughout time, it's not, what's captured isn't reality. It's what was seen in that moment, then expanded over time. But you know, the curious thing when we photograph waves, which some of you may have seen some of the beautiful photographs of waves, what we see on the image that later on we couldn't see. You know, you're doing multiple shots, less than a thousandth of a second, very, very fast. I mean, more than a thousandth of a second. I mean, just tiny, and you can't see it. And then you get the images and you began to see what you couldn't see. It's such an interesting analog for what we're doing in Zazen, that we began to see what we couldn't see um, because time changes. I want to share an image of one moment in time, um, one of Cassie's images, which I've gotten permission to do here. So take a moment just to rest here with Cassie and with Max. And I want to read Cassie's words. So I'm going to retrieve them here just for a second. I'll move the image. Can you still see it okay? Now, this is what Cassie wrote, but I want you to be able to see the image as I read these. Um, she says a couple of things, and then she says, I was a witness to his idea. He wanted to show me where he goes. Leaning back, climbing a tree, being with the day, taking his time. The image memory is what happened between us, between nature and each other. The image memory is what happened between us, between nature and each other. It's the connection I'm photographing, she says. And then she, in her teacherly way, says, cultivate the question. What am I connecting with? And this is the same in your practice every day. Cultivate the question. What are you connecting with? And she says, it's the question that matters. In this case, the answer is the photo you make. It's a beautiful request, isn't it? Cultivate the question. What am I connecting with? It's the questions that matter. Think right now of a memory image in your inner files. That's one of Cassie's. But I'm sure you have some images that are like that. Um, do you remember in the old days, there was a type of film and processing called Kodachrome? Remember that? In a famous song. There's um, a term that we sometimes use in photography. What's your neurochrome? The file that's in here. Something. So think of an image that's one of Cassie's images. Think of one of your images, something that matters, something that connects you in the moment, something that calls forward a question. Because this is inquiry, in this case, visually with light, but and what are you connecting with in that memory? Um, we're not taking a lot of time for this, of course. It would take longer time to do justice to it. But this is what matters. The answer is the photo you make if you're doing photography. But here, the answer is the life you live. The life you're living is your answer to your questions. And your answer and the life you live is the light you bring. Towards the end of her section here, she said, all that we are is reflected in our photos. And I'm saying all that we are is reflected in our life, of course. all that we bring. And she said, I'm talking about the parts that don't have names, as well as whatever is arising in me at any particular moment, all those unseen things. I was taking some photographs with my iPhone in very, very dark conditions, and it's amazing what it calls forward that I can actually see because it has a way of connecting with what my eyes can't see. But Zazen does this, our practice does this. So I want to thank Cassie for those teachings because they really called forward a lot about practice. These ceremonies and celebrations of light at this time of year that I was mentioning, um, they're markers um, at this time of year, and what a year it's been. Um, and what we've done as humans during these times of turn in this festival of light time of year is we have set out rites of passage, but they completely lose their meaning if we don't hold them appropriately. They're sacred containers, and they lead us into transformational spaces um, and liberated ways of being if we observe them. They're ways to illuminate experience if we observe them. They're ways to illuminate each other. They're ways to illuminate our lives. And they're ways to call forward our questions. What gets illuminated? What's get so solstice? Okay, that's December 20th. I believe that's is that Friday. And as many of you know, of course, the solstice is about rebirth. Remember, I emphasized that place at the bottom of the breath. There's a pause and a turn. Well, this is like in space. This is the pause before the turn, before we come back out of the dark toward the light. This is like the Earth's breath pausing and turning, beginning to come out of the dark. The Earth rests at the bottom before turning toward light. So here are a couple of questions that are ways of thinking about this that came to me since I'm following Cassie's teaching. What's the question? The questions are what matters. The photo you make is the answer to your question, or I'm saying the life that you live is the answer to your question. So the first one for solstice is what comes out of the dark that wants to be embodied. And this one you might want to think about. Maybe write it down. What comes out of the dark now at this time of year? And we're going to have a few weeks where Appamada will be closed. There'll be no inquiry. You'll have some time in this inhalation back towards the light and going through the holiday season and all the beauty and joy of the holidays and all the crazy, terrible things that happen in the holidays. What comes out of the dark and becomes embodied? I think this is why, for me, it's particularly lovely to sit in the early morning in the dark, do our sitting when it's dark, and watch the light arrive. There's something in your body that's beautiful about that. And I've mentioned this before that in the places in which we've done our Swiss retreats, the large Zendo has one wall that's completely glass, mirror. I mean, not mirror, it's a window looking out into the forest. And we face that wall. And so in the morning when we come and it's dark, it's a mirror. So when you sit, you see yourself. And as the light comes up, you disappear. Body and mind drop away, and the world becomes manifest. Denise, a wonderful student in Switzerland, has written a great poem about it. So we sit with uncertainty and with not knowing, with patiently waiting, in faith that the light will come, that the life will come. We sit waiting for the breath to come. Once Suzuki Roshi was talking about this rhythm of breath that I was encouraging you in sitting. And he said, just let the breath release and the exhale. And he said, and if you're alive, you'll inhale. And if not, no problem. So the solstice is this turn, and we're always turning. What is it that you turn toward? What turns your head? What turns your life? What turns your heart? What comes out of the dark and wants to be embodied in your life? Taking the solstice seriously and as a ceremony. Advent in the Christian calendar was from the first of the month to the 24th, which is about arrival, about coming, something coming. In this case, it's a celebration of the birth of a significant figure in the Christian faith, of course, but the word in Latin, adventus, means coming or visiting or making flesh. So once again, what arrives if you're patient and attentive? What arrives if you're really patient and attentive? Because this is the celebration of patience, one of the paramitas in some ways. But it's not passively waiting. It's like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. No, it's attentive. It's exactly like the posture of zazen, not doing anything, not holding back, not leaning forward, open to the present, on the edge of everything, patiently attentive, upright, in stillness and silence, but wakefulness, illuminating the moment with your presence. That's illumination. It's not knowing something, it's not figuring out something, it's the illumination of presence. So questions arrive about turning, questions arrive about what will arrive, what's coming. And then Hanukkah, which I believe this year is the 12th through the 20th, is about, it kind of literally means dedication. And I'm not a Jewish scholar, so I'll not do justice to this. I understand, but it does celebrate the rededication of the temple after it had been taken, is reclaimed. And there's this special, almost magical thing where during 8 days, there was a little bit of oil that was left in the tabernacle that lasted for 8 days. And so there's an 8 day celebration of lighting a candle each day. Illumination, miraculous illumination, something that's beyond what you think is possible, which is what we find in our practice. How do we consecrate ourselves? How do you consecrate this as the temple, the embodied temple of awakening, so that light can shine into the world? How do you consecrate this body? Reclaim it like the temple of awakening, so that it can light up the world. And how during our practice can we deepen our faith, a kind of a profound trust to reclaim our lives through practice and to come home to ourselves, to reclaim the temple? So on the 8th of December, we celebrated the Buddha's enlightenment. We just celebrated the possibility of illumination, that illumination is this life. And the solstice tells us that things turn and that we can come out of the dark and into the light again. Sometimes it's useful to go down into the dark, and this is the time of coming back out. Advent says to wait patiently and diligently and with attention for what's going to come. And Hanukkah says, dedicate yourself and consecrate yourself to the reclaiming of everything. And it's miraculous. Something's there that's maybe more than you could have imagined. And sometimes we do it with imagery. Um, but I thought that Cassie's teachings were really lovely and really set the stage for what I wanted to illuminate today. So, what are your questions? Um, and Cassie, please add, edit, or correct anything that I've not gotten right about your teachings. Um, but there was quite a bit of wonderful response from our students, nearly 20 students from all over the United States to Cassie's deep teaching. So please raise your hand if you'd like to come forward and you have questions or things to meet, like she did with Max in the tree. I see at least two people. Oh, Rosemary, good. I'll say, as Rosemary's getting ready here, I'll say that there are two people here, at least two, who are in the retreat. Um, and if they have, I'm curious if either of them have seen anything different on this second expression of this. So, Rosemary, let's see you.
Hi, Flint.
You had a big ceremony too.
I did, and I'll talk a little bit about the dark and the light with that. But images that mean something, and Cassie's beautiful image of Max in the tree, and I didn't see him at first, but
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
interesting, isn't it?
yeah, there he was, just part of it.
One with everything.
Exactly. When I was about 10, my brother and Central Park was a little subway right away. After school, we got on the subway and went to Central Park. And I had a Brownie camera, those of you who are
Yeah.
of our age. And there's at the seal pond, there were two cement eagles, and
Mhm.
his body fit under the wing of one of them. And yeah, so I have that photo, and it just, yeah, means
That's the
something
one
to
you
me.
you went to in your neurochrome file, huh?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. In terms of the light and the dark, so we had a rehearsal for just had the head student exit ceremony Sunday, and I was quite in the dark for a while because apparently everybody that was practicing in the Zendo had one set of instructions, and I had a different set, and it was all, and then there was an instruction that I had to come up with some koan, and I had no idea. So in the dark, so that became my koan. That not
That's a good
knowing
thought.
yeah, right. That became I think it's going to be my koan for life. And the so in preparing for the questions, you get up there and people can ask you questions, and you have to spontaneously respond. And I would say there were about 15, and they were all pretty deep. Anyway, with this not knowing, I didn't really like study up. I mean, how can you study up for something
No,
like this? You can't.
no, it's just your practice.
Yeah, you just be there, and then there's the connection. So that felt like that I had to trust that whatever light was there would connect and come forward. And
Like I do every time in inquiry.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I got a little taste of that. And it was very intimate and yeah, definitely illuminating, reflecting, co-reflecting. So it's my recent experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I like that we match,
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yes, congratulations. What else is turning at this time of year for you?
Yeah, Joel.
Hi, Flint.
Hey, you look like you're in a grand museum.
It is an incredible place. It's a guild hall in Padua,
Uh,
and it has this wooden horse made out of planks, by Donatello.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
it's an incredible place with hundreds of murals and
Yes.
paintings on the wall from medieval times. Anyway, I shared that. I chose it as my background because I wanted to share it with Rosemarie, who had as her background another photograph from another place in Padua last Sunday
Mm.
when was celebrating her celebration. But I wanted to say something about solstice and what a powerful time of year it is. And it's my understanding that it means the sun is standing still.
Hmm.
Static and stis and are the same root word, and the sun, of course, for soul. But that there's a sense that I find has it's not like I'm exploring it, but it's getting explored in me. That it's about the bottom of the breath before the next breath arises as a kind of connecting point. Uh,
Hmm.
and I just want to say that I'm so delighted that you pointed out that Rosemary celebrated her head student exit ceremony, and what a wonderful connector she is, and how
Mm.
powerful it is for me that I'm in the presence of so many people who are wonderful connectors,
Hmm.
who want to establish connections with others to sustain their lives, to sustain our life. It's very moving to me.
And how the requirement to do that includes standing still,
Mhm. Exactly.
stopping.
Just stopping, connecting, that they seem like maybe they're different, but they're not really different.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I know this is my riff, but because image is so powerful behind you and what you're saying is so powerful, I know in those moments for me, when I step into a space like that, I'm stopped. There's also that stopping because we're taken by things. So anyway, noticing that in myself as we talk. Thank you. Thank you, Joel. I think I see Leslie there.
Hey, Flint.
Yes.
Hi. Um, I love this conversation, and I love what Cassie taught it. Wish I would have been there to hear it. Been to that retreat twice now, and I'm a contemplative photographer myself, so it sounds really rich. Um, so I guess what I'm thinking is that photography for me is a form of zazen
Yes.
in that every time I go out with my camera, I have to come inside, I have to get quiet, I have to be present, I have to be open. And and I think I have learned, I have so many stories, which I could tell you until tomorrow about all the times I wasn't that
Right.
when I would go out with, for me, it's my planning mind. Okay, I'm going to go get a shot of this and it's going to look like that. And of course, when I get out there, it doesn't work.
Mhm.
And I get frustrated, I get angry, I get whatever I get. And then I remember,
Mhm.
oh yeah. And and so it's just like lesson after lesson after lesson and learning after learning. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about this. Um and knowing when I do am drawn to something, to kind of try and understand why. What is it about this image? And
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know, get home and download and look at it and think, I love this, but why? What is it? What is it
Well,
about
you
this?
know this really well, but I'll reiterate it. The way to address that question of why is to go closer and keep photographing
Hmm.
and keep looking, keep seeing, not because you'll figure something out. Remember, it's what you get in response, that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's
What
the
do
same
you
with our life. We
bring?
want to like figure it out, but we have to keep meeting it and connecting, like
Right.
Joel was saying. And you're really learning that. The Four Noble Truths, think of it in terms of, you just taught them basically in photography, is caught in the self-centered dream about the image that I think I want and could make, holding to self-centered thoughts about what it's going to be. It doesn't turn out, but each moment of light and experience as it is the one that's what's teaching you.
Yes.
So to be just this moment is the way of compassion, both of self and with the world.
Yeah. And there's that pause that you talked about when I remember, and then I can settle in, and then I'll say to myself, well, maybe I'll just see what is here
How about that?
instead of what I came after.
Right.
Yeah.
That
I
quote
love that moment.
that
Yeah.
often used about it's not all that hard to get enlightened. What's hard is to give up our sense of the world so the world can come to us.
Yeah, exactly. That's
It's
exactly.
vast, pitiless, loving, until it'll come to us if we make that space and make that pause.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for this. This was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Cassie.
Thank you again for your teachings.
Thank you for that opportunity. And all the points that I wanted to make, you just made with Leslie. So, but I'd already.
Oh, go ahead. Come on.
If I had asked Max to do that and said, "Oh, I want to take this kind of photo," it wouldn't have happened. And
That
when
would
I,
be interesting.
yeah, and so, like, what is it to self-identify as what's happening in between?
Say more about what you mean. I'm not sure I get it. I want to make sure I get it. Something happens in between that's neither you nor him.
And yet it is more me and more him than any idea of me or him.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, it's
Because any idea is going to be a cognitive abstraction of the reality, which is everything. It's going to be a small piece that now you
I'm gonna shrink it. Yeah.
shrink it into a concept.
Uh,
And that's fine. You can also have a photograph of it, but it's not reality. It's what you're teaching about. The photograph isn't reality.
and right. Um, because but it's really real.
Absolutely. That's the paradox.
Uh-huh. Um, and I, I'm in love with the phrasing that I was talking at one point to somebody, Chet, and said, we have to get down the road and we have to get down our path. And
Mhm.
like we've been talking about that photo as Max in the tree. If we didn't call it Max in the tree, we wouldn't have signs to know what we were talking about. But that's not what that photo is, even though it is Max in a tree.
Right. Yeah. It's about the connection.
So,
And I think that's one of the great things about it is when you first look at it, you don't see it.
mhm,
I don't have a name for it because as soon as you name it,
we go
something
right.
else happens. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, and I just have so much profound gratitude for what you offer us continuously.
Thank you.
And it's it always brings me home.
Well, and that's what you did in your teaching. You helped us return home too. So, and throughout the week, people continued to be impacted by what you said and what you showed them as they continued to come home to themselves.
Thank you.
Susie.
Thank you. Thank you, Cassie. for that wonderful lesson. I am not officially a photographer. I'm a painter, but I use my camera in very much the same way. And to you too, Flint, and Leslie. It struck me so deeply that the way I paint, I go out into the world and I wait as I'm looking to hear the thing. I call it my pings. Like I'll suddenly get a ping about, oh, there's something there. And then I use my camera to kind of go in and go deeper and go deeper and deeper until I begin to sort of recognize more for myself and interact and find that place of meeting. What is it? What is that ping? What is that thing that draws me in that I want to be with? And then I make a painting of that. And that's another level of meeting in a different kind of way. But my camera is the thing that is an extension of my eyes, very much so, and letting me see things that are not what I think I'm going to see. When I go to a new location, I'm not looking for a particular thing. I'm open to what's there, and
And
open.
can we enter the Zendo that way?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, very much so. Very much so.
Be open to what's there, even though we have an idea of what we think we want.
And what it's supposed to be like and how it's supposed to go. And
Yes.
am I going to get that shot? Like Leslie said, am I going to get that? Oh, I want that shot. And what Cassie said about, yeah, if he was not in if he came, I'm forgotten his name already. Gus, is that right? Max, sorry. Right. If you had, Cassie, if you had asked him to set this up, if you had set it up with him and wanted him to enact it, it would not have been authentic. It wouldn't have had the power that it has as a photograph and as an image of that moment. So I just absolutely loved the part about too of that you said, Cassie, about that a photograph is a moment that expands time, and it lets us see the things that we don't see because we go through things so quickly. It just lets us. So anyway, I'm just thrilled today. This spoke to me as an artist and as a practitioner too. So I want to thank all of you for this. Thank you.
And also, Blake, the poet, once said, infinity isn't a massive amount of time. It's one moment outside of time. Eternity is not an infinite amount of time, but one moment outside of time. Here's Ed in time.
Just in time for the end of our time. Cassie, Flint, everybody, thank you so much for what you said, the profundity of that, but also in the simplicity of it, not simpleness, but in the simplicity, which is the directness of it. And I wish, I don't like to engage in fear of missing out, but I really wish I had been there for that one, Cassie. And just there were three things that really struck me. Obviously, that the way that you said it's about extending time, that is so spot on. And what a great way to say that. And it's tangible, but at the same time, it holds all the ethereal and non-tangible stuff about anything we do with creativity. And how you very aptly pointed out, in Latin, it's called tabula rasa, which means blank slate. And when you do those things, when you go out to photograph, when you sit down at your writing table, you come with a blank slate. When you enter the Zendo, it's a blank slate. It's not an expectation or desire, or I'll show Ansel Adams how to take a black and white photo. It's a blank slate. And Minor White kind of riffed on that. And he said, what happens is when you have that blank slate state of mind, say that fast, you get open to equivalence. And he called it equivalence. You'll see something. And you, Cassie, you said what was there was you, was Max, was the tree, but also was not you or Max or the tree, but there were equivalencies that were established, which gave that image its life and its meaning. And that's something that comes from that openness, to be free to see what's there and to accept and to extend, and then you image it, and that's that offering, and that's what makes an incredible value to it all. And I'm going to stop at that point.
And what's the equivalence when you sit?
Yeah.
You are the Buddha.
Yes.
You are light. You're not trying to come in and be Ansel Adams. You're not trying to come in and be Dogen and sit like him. You are. Thank you. I think because it's our final time to be together in this venue for this particular year, I want to echo the gratitude that has been offered to me, but that Cassie said, but offer it back to you. You're showing up week after week after week is you being in the tree. You know, it's like we get to meet. We have a you get to show me who I am by inviting me to meet you. I get to practice deeply, and it helps others. It gives others the opportunity to practice deeply in a way that is, and I think, encouraging and accessible and not so difficult for folks. And I do my best to offer prompts and encouragements that will bring us forward, but you provide the deepest teachings by bringing your life experience. This is what gets illuminated. This is the illumination. And right now we're in that point of reaching some stillness um, where it can reach us and we can see what we otherwise couldn't see. So thank you for that. We'll offer our final reminder chant in all of its levels of meaning. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Flint. Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity, and your support makes a huge difference. There's a link for contributions on the website, and I've placed it here in the chat as well. Your contributions do make a huge difference. If you'd like to hang out on the porch for a little bit, we'll be around. And thank you if you can't today. It's been nice to see everyone and be together.